Good evening. My name is Joe Bandel, and I am the last Rosicrucian. Tonight is going to be a little bit difficult, and the subject is called The Prison of the Mind. And I usually look over the talk or read the talking points, and then I try to clear some things up. But I think I'm going to have to really read a little bit and then talk a little bit to clarify it, and read a little bit. So it's going to be a little more rough for me, and I hope it's going to work for you guys. We are trapped by the prison of our own thoughts. We are unable to think outside the box in any meaningful and creative way without the help of outside influence. This is a concept when we feel trapped in our lives in any situation. The reason is because we can't find a way out of it. And we can't find a way out of it because we're unable to break through our own line of thinking. That's why sometimes you get people in to help, you get new ideas coming in, things like that, to think outside the box. That's what I'm talking about here, trapped by our own thoughts. There's so much in this world for empowerment. It is learning how to think outside the box. The world of the mind, of ideas, thoughts, concepts, and essences has been used to gain mastery over physical and earthly things by removing us from them. What I mean by that is when we use our mind, when we're in a physical situation and we use our mind, we draw back so that we're not emotionally caught up. That's what I'm talking about. So that we can mentally observe and use not be ruled by our emotions in this. This drawing back into the mind has been used to help us overcome the limitations of nature, the desires of the flesh. The intent and purpose was so that we could be masters of our physical natures and our emotions and not be controlled by them, not be drawn into the whirlpool, the maelstrom. It goes without saying that our physical natures and emotions are what enrich our lives and give depth and richness to what would otherwise become a sterile and lifeless living in the head. These things bring depth and meaning to our lives, but they cannot dominate and rule our lives. It's time to ask the next question. Should the mind, with its world of ideas, thoughts, concepts, and essences, be the tyrant that dominates and subdues the physical body and its passions, or should it share dominion with the rest of the body? Should the mind dominate our lives as absolute ruler, or does the body have its own wisdom? Can the emotions and the heart be trusted? Does intelligence lie within the human body, within the entire body, or only within the mind? What about within the DNA? Is there such a thing as organic intelligence? It's just as easy for the mind to deceive itself as it is for the emotions to cause us to act in unthinking passion. But the heart has an intelligence of its own, which we call conscience. Only the heart and the still small voice of our conscience are worthy to wear the crown. This is the hidden wisdom of all the mystery schools down through the ages. The wisdom and mastery of the human heart and the conscience is as eternal internal authorities that rule our lives wisely and justly. It is the heart and the voice of conscience that should be the ruler in our lives, not our minds, not our emotions. Mind isolates itself in smugness, believing that it alone has the power and the understanding needed to determine the proper course of action in any given situation. But the entire body, with all its sensory inputs, has information to share about our immediate environment, information that is vital to a true and holistic assessment of any given situation. We need all the inputs, all the data of a situation. That's all this is saying, before we can make an informed decision. Much of that information is not available to the mind itself unless the mind accepts and recognizes the importance of what the body is trying to say. Remember that our bodies don't lie, and that communication consists of 95% nonverbal body language. That means we miss 95% of the communication if we only listen to the words that we hear and the thoughts that are expressed without paying attention to the other cues that come along with it. Often the truth of the situation is much different than what we think it is at first glance. Often things are not what they seem. Something might be legally correct, yet morally corrupt, or physically abusive, or have hidden consequences that we are not yet aware of. To make the best choices, we need to use all of the wisdom contained within our entire bodies and souls. We need to follow the still small voice of conscience, which speaks from within our hearts. Now, when we think about these talking points, we're talking about a couple things. We're talking about the wisdom of the heart, and we're talking about the wisdom of the body. What is the wisdom of the body? What is organic consciousness? Or do you think there is such a thing? I do. I believe it. I live with it. When we're in a situation, part of us is smelling things. Part of us is aware of emotions. They're aware of things within the environment. There's so many sensory inputs and even psychic inputs, if you will, besides the body language, which is nonverbal. So there's so many nonverbal situations that we need to be aware of if we really want to gain empowerment in our lives. We are prisoners of our belief systems. And a lot of times, well, let me put it this way. If your belief system is working for you, then it's great. There's no need to change it. But if there's times when it's not working, if there's times when you run into problems, you run into flaws, and you run up against a brick wall, which, like most of us do, that's a sign that, hey, something's not working right. And our accustomed way of dealing with this situation is not working. How are we going to break out of the box? Most of the mystery schools, if you will, end up teaching how to break out of that box, how to look at something in a different way, how to cut through the smugness, cut through the certainty, cut through all of these things that we're rigid about. And it's a skill to be open-minded. And there's a balancing act here, because you need to believe in things. You can't be lackadaisical about things. But the things you believe in need to be adaptable. Are you going to adapt? Because life is about adapting to new conditions. And the beliefs and the life patterns, the behavior patterns of the past need to change a lot of times with new situations in life, new things that we confront. And we can't break out by ourselves a lot of times. We need input from other people. We need input from other situations. So a way of doing this is to ask others for input, ask others for help. Place ourselves in situations that will challenge us in unknown ways so that we will be forced to alter our behavior, like it or not. And a lot of times that is a painful process. But the more we recognize it, the more we recognize how it works, the more we can train ourselves to adapt and even at times look forward to breaking out of that box and exploring new options, because that's what it's all about. That's what makes life interesting. It's what makes life exciting, is to try new things, to find out what things bring surprises in a good way, and to learn to avoid those things that bring the failures, which we all experience as well. So anyway, that's the subject, the prison of the mind. I'm running out of time. Consider supporting these videos. Share them with others. I do have a growing number of videos that are available for patrons. You can check out. They're listed down below. But anyway, thank you. Have a good day. I am trying to offer information that helps expand the thinking and challenge some of the belief systems that you may have.